Dwight David Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States and the Supreme Allied Commander during World War II, emerged as one of the most influential leaders of the 20th century, guiding America through the perils of global conflict and the tensions of the Cold War with a steady hand rooted in military discipline and pragmatic vision. Born into a modest family in Denison, Texas, Eisenhower grew up in Abilene, Kansas, where his parents, David and Ida Eisenhower, instilled in him the values of hard work, faith, and integrity. Raising 6 sons in a small house where young Ike, as he was nicknamed, learned the importance of responsibility through chores on the family farm and part-time jobs to support his education. From an early age, Eisenhower displayed a keen interest in history and military strategy, devouring books on ancient battles and dreaming of a career in the armed forces, a path that led him to apply to the United States Military Academy at West Point, where he was accepted in 1911 on a football scholarship, excelling in sports despite a knee injury that ended his athletic pursuits and shifting his focus to academics and leadership. At West Point, Eisenhower honed his strategic mind, graduating in the middle of his class, but earning respect for his organizational skills and ability to inspire peers, qualities that would define his military ascent. Upon commissioning as a second lieutenant, Eisenhower's early career was marked by assignments across the United States, including training troops during World War I at Camp Colt in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where he commanded a tank training center, but never saw overseas combat, a disappointment that fueled his determination to prove himself in future conflicts. In the interwar years, Eisenhower served under legendary generals like John J. Pershing and Douglas MacArthur, accompanying MacArthur to the Philippines as a military aide, where he developed plans for the defense of the islands and gained invaluable experience in logistics and diplomacy, all while rising through the ranks to lieutenant colonel by the eve of World War II. As the storm clouds of war gathered in Europe, Eisenhower's talents caught the eye of Army Chief of Staff George C. Marshall, who promoted him rapidly, recognizing his exceptional ability to plan large-scale operations and manage complex alliances, leading to his appointment as head of the War Plans Division in Washington after Pearl Harbor. In a meteoric rise, Eisenhower was named commanding general of the European Theater of Operations in 1942, overseeing the buildup of American forces in Britain and planning the invasion of North Africa, Operation Torch, which marked the first major Allied offensive against the Axis powers and demonstrated his skill in coordinating multinational troops. His success in North Africa, where he navigated tensions between American, British, and Free French forces to capture Tunis and force the surrender of over 250,000 Axis soldiers, positioned him as the natural choice for Supreme Allied Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, a role he assumed in preparation for the most ambitious amphibious assault in history, the D-Day invasion of Normandy. As Supreme Allied Commander, Eisenhower bore the weight of the free world's hopes, meticulously planning Operation Overlord with his staff at Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force in London, deciding on the fateful date of June 6, 1944, despite uncertain weather, and issuing a stirring order of the day to the troops, reminding them that the eyes of the world are upon you, as over 156,000 soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy, a daring operation that cracked Hitler's fortress, Europe, and set the stage for the liberation of Western Europe. Eisenhower's leadership during the campaign was tested by fierce German resistance, logistical challenges, and Allied rivalries, yet he masterminded the breakout from Normandy, the pursuit across France, and the grueling Battle of the Bulge, where his calm decision-making turned a potential disaster into a decisive victory, ultimately leading Allied forces to cross the Rhine, link up with Soviet troops at the Elbe, and accept the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany on May 8, 1945, ending the war in Europe and cementing his status as a military genius who orchestrated the defeat of fascism through unparalleled coalition warfare. In the war's aftermath, Eisenhower served as military governor of the U.S. occupation zone in Germany, overseeing denazification, reconstruction, and the care of displaced persons, before returning home as a national hero, decorated with 5 stars and celebrated in ticker-tape parades. Appointed Chief of Staff of the Army by President Harry Truman, Eisenhower streamlined the military for peacetime, advocating for unification of the armed services that culminated in the National Security Act of 1947, creating the Department of Defense and the CIA, foundational structures for the Cold War era. Retiring briefly from active duty, Eisenhower became president of Columbia University, where he promoted civic education and international studies, but his respite was short-lived as Truman persuaded him to serve as the first Supreme Commander of NATO in 1950, building the alliance's military framework to counter Soviet expansion in Europe, a role that highlighted his diplomatic acumen in forging unity among diverse nations. As the 1952 presidential election approached, both parties courted Eisenhower, but he aligned with the Republicans, disillusioned with Truman's policies, and ran on a platform of ending the Korean War, combating communism, and restoring fiscal responsibility, defeating Adlai Stevenson in a landslide with his I Like Ike campaign that appealed to Americans weary of conflict and bureaucracy. Taking office as the 34th president, Eisenhower swiftly negotiated an armistice in Korea, fulfilling his pledge to go to Korea and bring peace. While at home, he launched ambitious infrastructure projects like the Interstate Highway System, inspired by his World War II experiences with German autobahns, a 41,000-mile network that revolutionized transportation, boosted the economy, and symbolized his vision for a connected, prosperous America. Eisenhower's presidency navigated the treacherous waters of the Cold War, where he pursued a strategy of massive retaliation with nuclear deterrence to contain Soviet influence without direct confrontation, authorizing the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles and the U-2 spy plane program, while his new-look defense policy balanced military strength with budget constraints, reducing conventional forces in favor of strategic air power. In foreign affairs, Eisenhower employed covert operations through the CIA to counter perceived threats, orchestrating coups in Iran and Guatemala to protect American interests, and formulating the Eisenhower Doctrine to provide aid to Middle Eastern nations resisting communism, as demonstrated by his intervention in the 1958 Lebanon crisis. Domestically, Eisenhower enforced civil rights milestones, sending federal troops to Little Rock, Arkansas, in 1957 to integrate Central High School amid resistance to Brown versus Board of Education, and signing the Civil Rights Acts of 1957 and 1960 to protect voting rights, steps that laid groundwork for future advancements despite his cautious approach to avoid alienating Southern Democrats. Eisenhower's administration also responded to the Soviet launch of Sputnik with the creation of NASA and the National Defense Education Act, investing in science and technology to win the space race and ensure American innovation, while his Atoms for Peace initiative promoted peaceful nuclear energy, leading to the establishment of the International Atomic Energy Agency. Economically, Eisenhower maintained prosperity with balanced budgets, low inflation, and growth, vetoing excessive spending to curb government expansion, and his farewell address warned of the military-industrial complex, a prescient caution about the dangers of unchecked defense influence on policy and society. Re-elected in 1956 with an even larger margin against Stevenson, Eisenhower's second term focused on de-escalating Cold War tensions, engaging in summits with Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev, including a 1959 visit to Camp David that thawed relations temporarily, though the 1960 U-2 incident derailed a Paris summit and heightened suspicions. Leaving office with high approval, Eisenhower retired to his Gettysburg farm, writing memoirs like Mandate for Change and advising successors, including John F. Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis, until his death from heart failure at age 78. Mourned as a soldier-statesman who preserved peace through strength, Eisenhower's legacy endures as a model of bipartisan leadership, with his interstate system transforming daily life, his Cold War strategies containing communism without major war, and his civil rights actions advancing equality. Though critics note his reluctance on desegregation and covert intervention's long-term consequences, yet his emphasis on moderation, fiscal responsibility, and global stability continues to influence American policy, reminding us that true leadership lies in serving the nation with humility and foresight. Eisenhower's early military assignments, from training tank crews to staff roles in the War Department, built his reputation as a master planner, earning him rapid promotions during World War II from colonel to five-star general in just 3 years, a testament to his organizational genius. As Supreme Allied Commander, he managed egos like those of George Patton and Bernard Montgomery, ensuring unified command that drove the Allies to victory, from the Sicilian campaign to the liberation of Paris, where his decisions, like halting at the Elbe to avoid clashing with Soviets, shaped post-war Europe. Post-war, as President of Colombia, he founded the Institute of War and Peace Studies, reflecting his belief in education as a tool for peace, while his NATO command forged the alliance's early structure, deterring Soviet aggression through collective defense. In the White House, Eisenhower's hidden hand style masked active involvement, using cabinet meetings to guide policy on issues like the Formosa Strait crises with China, where he threatened nuclear use to deter invasion of Taiwan. His Operation Ajax in Iran installed the Shah, securing oil interests but sowing seeds for future instability, while in Vietnam, he refused French requests for direct aid at Dien Bien Phu, limiting U.S. involvement to advisors, a cautious approach his successors expanded. Domestically, Eisenhower expanded Social Security coverage and created the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, balancing conservatism with progressive investments, and his Atoms for Peace speech at the UN promoted nuclear sharing for energy, leading to treaties that controlled proliferation. The 1956 Hungarian uprising tested his doctrine, as he condemned Soviet intervention but avoided military aid to prevent escalation, a pragmatic choice that preserved peace. Eisenhower's farewell warning about the military-industrial complex, delivered in his televised address, highlighted risks of undue influence on democracy, a concern echoed in modern debates over defense spending. His golf outings, often criticized as leisure, were strategic for building relationships with congressional leaders, facilitating bipartisan deals like the Highway Bill. Eisenhower's role in the space race, responding to Sputnik with the National Aeronautics and Space Act, launched NASA and prioritized satellite technology for intelligence, paving the way for Apollo. His civil rights legacy, though mixed, included appointing Earl Warren to the Supreme Court, whose decisions advanced desegregation, and enforcing federal law in Little Rock with the 101st Airborne, a bold move against Governor Orville Faubus that upheld constitutional authority. Economically, his 3 balanced budgets in 8 years contrasted with later deficits, emphasizing fiscal discipline amid post-war boom. In retirement, Eisenhower's Crusade in Europe memoir detailed his World War II command, becoming a bestseller and educating generations on strategy, while his paintings and farm life revealed a private man of simple pleasures. Honored with a state funeral attended by world leaders, Eisenhower's tomb in Abilene symbolizes his Kansas roots, a reminder that great leaders often emerge from ordinary beginnings. His influence on successors, advising Lyndon Johnson on Vietnam and Richard Nixon on China, underscores his enduring wisdom in foreign affairs. Today, Eisenhower's interstate system, carrying millions daily, stands as a monument to his vision, while his Cold War containment strategy informs responses to modern threats like cyber warfare and authoritarianism. For students, his life teaches the value of preparation and alliance building, from West Point to NATO. Historians debate his covert operations ethics, but praise his aversion to nuclear war, as in refusing to use weapons in Korea or during the Suez Crisis, where he pressured Britain and France to withdraw from Egypt, preserving U.S. credibility. Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace initiative, delivering reactors to allies, advanced science but raised proliferation risks. A dual legacy in energy policy. His creation of the President's Council on Physical Fitness addressed youth health, promoting exercise amid Cold War fitness concerns. Eisenhower's presidency, bridging World War II heroism and Cold War prudence, embodies steady leadership in turbulent times, a model for navigating division with unity and purpose. To grasp his strategic mind, consider his World War II decisions, like choosing Normandy over Pas-de-Calais for deception, or post-war, his atoms for peace speech that shifted nuclear focus from destruction to development, influencing international agreements. His Open Skies, proposal for aerial inspections aimed to reduce arms race tensions, a precursor to satellite verification. Domestically, his handling of the 1954 McCarthy hearings, condemning tactics without direct confrontation, preserved civil liberties while neutralizing extremism. Eisenhower's legacy, from military triumph to presidential stability, inspires reflection on how one man's journey from Kansas farms to global command shaped a safer world, proving that true power lies in service, not domination.